in the last year.
So this is I'm quite old-fashioned, and I always think that closing an event is as important as opening an event. So thank you all for staying. We have lost a few people for various technical, family, geographic, finance and other reasons, and that's all fine. But the real people are here, and we're going to see what we can get.
Where's my nameplate?
Your nameplate, very important.
You can borrow mine if you like.
I saw it.
I'd love to do that.
Maybe on the side there.
Usually I'm not troubled by it. I just don't have too much identity.
So-
There we go.
Before we kick off for what will be a sort of informal session designed with 2 or 3 tasks. One is what new or underlying themes do we think has emerged? Secondly, what might we do next? And thirdly, how do we stay in touch? How do we support each other? And so on. How do we maintain the network? Those are the sort of hidden aims of this session. But before we start the technical things, first of all, I've been reminded by Barbara and others that we have been filming this. And the reason for filming is really to capture the content so that when we do the report, it's kind of easier. But is there anybody who objects? I think what we should do is to send a form round and ask you just to sign that you're happy that it's being filmed. We're not sure we're going to use the film for anything particular, and we're certainly going to use it to produce the report. But is Talia still here?
No,
I mean, for example, she would like to have some of the sessions for Oxfam purposes and for learning purposes.
And we also want to
Okay.
listen.
So what I would like to do is to send a sheet around.
Yes.
Can you do a sheet which says I'm happy that this session is filmed? Just right on the top.
I represent.
No, can you write it and then we'll send it round now? Yes. We're getting it. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing is about emails. Several people would like to share emails so that we can keep in touch with either everybody or particular people. Does anybody, I have to ask formally, does anybody mind that? No? I mean, you've got until, if you change your mind, let's say you've got until, tomorrow at 12. Because I have to ask that formally. Because
If we want to look at the film, can we also get access to the film?
yes.
We want to look at it and listen to what we have been discussing.
And just send it. If you have any particular requests, send us an email and we'll try to. I'm sure we can
Sorry,
manage.
Paul, I do have a qualification to the description you just gave yourself.
Please.
This is going to be very, I don't like saying it, I feel rather mean to say it also. But there was a perception in my proposal to the donor that we would be going deeper into both the notion of inequality and in some sense unpacking it not only in terms of development but also in terms of a political philosophy which can now be put on to work. It's going to be a brainstorming on feminism and its relationship to equality. Now, we have not necessarily had that as a critical debate because we are a different type of gathering. So I would like to suggest that we do what Paul is saying, that you must give some of us the liberty of converting it also into an essay which is a little more theoretical and much more towards feminist ideology. So I have to make that qualification because that was the kind of mad promise I made when I made the proposal. And that doesn't mean that I'm not very, 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 very grateful that we could put this together, because to put this together was a huge challenge. And so this gathering that we've had in discussions would have a report which reflects what we discussed. But that will have to be transformed in another sense, and that should not be, you should not mind that it should be transformed somewhat. Okay.
I think that, thank you.
From that, like if we had the one report of the draft report we got of the previous seminar, we have a report on this seminar, and both very interesting, both very different, and then out of that, Devaki may want to make some kind of synthesized report that can go to the donor that relates to the objectives.
I think that would be perfect, because in a sense you want to go forward from some of the ideas. And one of the items I want to discuss in this is whether we have got a kind of new norm emerging or new direction.
Just a collateral request. I don't know, there were so many really interesting slides with statistics that it was impossible to write down as they went along. I don't know what the logistics are, but if it were possible to circulate the slide presentations, that would be immensely interesting.
I think one way or another we've got most of them because we've been putting them up on the machine. But I think what I will do is I'll write to each person individually and just check.
Yes.
Sometimes people, their work's in progress, and then you suddenly get it circulated and they meet their own work in progress later on and they've changed their view and it's really embarrassing. So I don't think there'll be a problem. The kinds of people who are here are very keen and willing to share, so that was good. So those are just sort of technical things. In terms of how the afternoon will work, I mean there is coffee there now, isn't there?
Yes.
So you can just pop up and get coffee, and then when we finish there'll be some tea and then we'll do our goodbyes, okay? And we won't keep you longer than advertised. If you've got trains to catch or schedules or families to rediscover, they've forgotten you over the weekend. Thank you for those who made that sacrifice. Now, what I did at some point, can I find a piece of paper, was to write a few little headings. And we put down various people here, some of whom haven't had a chance to make a presentation, because we thought they're very important participants, and we thought it would be interesting to give them time on the floor to make some comments. As I say, one of the aims is to see what were there any kind of overarching underlying themes? Were there any new kinds of thinking or new kinds of ideas? Were there areas that need further research which we collectively would encourage? And I don't want to skew the debate, but I'm just going to mention a few headings which might guide the panelists. And I want you to ignore these headings if you feel that you want to. I mean, it's absolutely, we want to have it a kind of free-flowing, open discussion. And after that, I think I'm going to invite Barbara, who's been, who went home and was very stimulated and she's very kindly produced some ideas in a presentation. So maybe she can kick off, and then we'll take some of the other speakers. Martina, as we knew, couldn't make it in the end. So my thoughts were, first of all, about the role of government, often ignored, neglected in the current narrative. And I thought that a number of the papers reminded us how crucial government can be, and how critical government can be to make change. In other words, we can have an initiative, we can have a program, but if the government is against or neutral, then somehow that program will somehow kind of fail. And I thought, particularly in the agendas on care, healthcare, childcare, elderly care, and providing incentives to men to change their behaviour. I mean, I thought that was crucial. So that was one thing that struck me. Secondly, lovely discussion on infrastructure, and I thought really exciting stuff about how infrastructure needs to be regendered, rethought, recalibrated. And I thought Devaki's point about soft infrastructure was a terrific idea, which we don't have in Europe, and we could begin to use it straight away. That every big project might have an added element which is specific to others. So I found that really amazing take-home point. We've had quite a few presentations about new ways of organising, I mean, we had Beata today talking about a kind of inclusive municipalism, which is very exciting, and she gave us the example of Medellin, which is very, very famous. And I think the colleagues from Oxfam talked about new forms of collective bargaining and representation and involvement. I don't know whether we can go forward with that, and whether that leads us to new kinds of thinking and new kinds of norms. I think that's the key challenge that we have. We've had some very interesting papers on the law. I mean, the law is crucial in terms of enforcement and in terms of encouraging change, but it doesn't make change. So it's a kind of a limit, but we've discussed the role of CEDAW, and we've talked about quotas. So I don't know whether we want to talk a little bit more about law. And I thought Helena's point about the law having been invented by man in a sort of patriarchal setting over many centuries. Is there some way that we can restructure it, or how